Hey everyone, this is Pete, and welcome back to Atari A to Z, a series of short playthroughs of Atari 8-bit games, some which I grew up with and some which are new to me. Today's game is Impetus, which was a 2022 public domain release from Japanese developer Inufuto. In 2022, Inufuto decided to take a selection of games that he'd originally created for the MSX platform and port them to a vast number of other platforms from both the same time period and a little bit later. So rather than restricting himself to home computer systems that were popular in Japan, he also included home computer systems that people enjoyed in the West, including the Commodore 64, the VIC-20, the Atari 8-bit, the Amstrad CPC and a few more besides. Inufuto's efforts ran in distinct steps that he recorded on a flowchart, as some ports required a bit more effort than others, which was particularly the case for systems that ran on radically different processor architecture or which had very different graphical capabilities. And according to Inufuto's flowchart, the Atari port was 3 steps away from the MSX original, having passed via the Commodore 64 and Commodore 16 versions first. Impetus itself is a fairly simple vertically scrolling shooter and honestly not one of the stronger titles from Inufuto's lineup, but it's still interesting to explore given the context behind it, and you can explore all his other games on his website as well. So let's go play Impetus. Okay, here we are with Impetus from Inufuto, one of his many ports of his MSX games, and this is the Atari version. I've played a few of these on the Commodore 64. I did a feature on them on Rice Digital a while back, but I haven't tried any of the Atari versions yet. So it's going to be interesting to give these a go. The Atari's graphical capabilities are slightly different to the MSX's. So if you compare sort of the basic screen layouts and resolution of this to the MSX version, you'll see a few obvious differences, particularly when it comes to how the text looks and so on. But I feel like the gameplay and stuff will probably be quite similar. So let's have a look. Here we go. So Impetus is not an amazing game or anything like that. It's a vertically scrolling shoot 'em up. With fairly jerky scrolling, as you can see. As the poor old MSX wasn't great at scrolling, so evidently as part of his porting process here, he hasn't made an attempt to make use of the Atari's hardware scrolling facilities, which is a shame, but you know, it doesn't matter too much. If what he's going for is an experience that's reasonably true to the MSX original version, I mean, this is the sort of thing it's going to be. And I have to say, despite the janky scrolling and the fairly limited graphics, the controls are really nice and responsive. There's no sense that you're sort of waiting for a game's main loop to update before it's taking joystick input. Because what happens in some early games like this is that the rate at which the controls are pulled is tied to sort of the overall frame rate of the game. And that can lead to quite sluggish and unresponsive controls. But in this, as you can see, I can move the ship around much faster than the enemies move and much faster than the actual scrolling. So I've got nice, responsive, nippy controls. The fire button responds nicely. You can only have 2 bullets on screen at once, but that's nothing unusual for games of this type. I mean, this is obviously going for a feel that's reminiscent of something like Xevious and so on. It doesn't have the bombing side of Xevious because you just shoot everything with your standard bullets, but the sort of sedately vertically scrolling thing over the greenery with the mix of ground and air targets, that's very Xevious. It does say stage 1 at the top though, so that suggests that we're going to reach the end of a stage at some point. I wonder if there's going to be like a boss or anything. Or like a big installation to destroy like in Xevious. Keep going and we might find out. Hard to tell if he's actually using any sprites here. I think some of the enemy ships... you say that. I was going to say I thought some of the enemy ships might be sprites, but then if you look, they're sort of interfering with the background as well, which suggests that they're actually character art. The same for our ship. So like when you fly over... Oh, we do have a boss. That's exciting. Very easy boss. But yeah, if you, like when I fly over this green patch here, you can see a black square around the ship. So that suggests that the ship is made up of... It's either one big character or multiple smaller characters put together. Given the layout of the screen, I'm going to guess that it's probably made up of 4 text characters. So if you look at the score and high score display over at the side, that's the size of 1 text character, one of those letters. And I think the ships and enemies are probably made out of 4 of those. Because that would mean the entire screen can be in one graphics mode rather than having to do anything too complicated with display lists. Because again, you've got to remember that what Inufuto was doing with this project was he was porting these games to as many platforms as possible. He wasn't necessarily trying to do the absolute best job he possibly could on all of them. Rather, it was more of a case of him proving that it could be done. And so yes, if he built this specifically for the Atari, and sort of gone in with the mind that he wanted to optimize it for Atari and make use of the Atari's unique capabilities and hardware and that sort of thing, yes, this could have probably been better, more technically accomplished. But as a port, it's perfectly respectable. It works well. Like I say, the controls are really nicely responsive. The main issue with this game that I found when playing the Commodore 64 version is it's just not that interesting, unfortunately. It doesn't really ramp up the difficulty quickly enough. As you can see, we're only ever really facing 2 or 3 things at once. And it just means that the game on the whole isn't super exciting. Which is a shame. But I'm not going to hold it against it too much. And we'll see how far we can get in this playthrough. Because it's not bad, it's a pleasant enough game to play. Oh, another boss. And on to stage 3. Extra life. Not that I really needed one. Another extra life. Oh, I missed it though. Stuff seems to be firing bullets at me at a slightly faster pace now, at least. So we've got a few more incoming attacks, if nothing else. It's still not especially difficult though. Another extra life. Yeah, it could just do with just another one. Jesus. It could just do with a few more things going on at once, or like just the enemies arriving a little bit sooner, because at the moment there's like some fairly significant downtime between new waves of enemies arriving. Or mixing things up together a bit more. I don't know, I mean maybe that will change on the later stages. You've got some multi-channel sound going on as well. There's 2 channels being used on the music. Another channel for the laser sound. And I'm going to guess the explosions are on another sound channel. Although maybe they're on the same channel as the laser sound, because it doesn't look like you can have an explosion sound and a laser sound at the same time. I would have maybe put the explosions on the 4th channel, because that way you could have the lasers and the explosion sound simultaneously, and make full use of the 4 channels of sound the Atari offered. I don't know offhand what the MSX's sound capabilities were. I know they were quite good. Because like, although a lot of MSX games are prone to jerky scrolling like we see here, they often sound really good. They have very good music. And the ColecoVision, which we looked at in a stream a little while back, has a lot in common with the MSX. Although I think one of the main differences between the... Oh, I've died for once, but I've got the extra life straight back, so... You can't shoot while you're invincible, that's interesting. Yeah, the ColecoVision, which we covered in a stream a little while back, at the time of recording, has similar capabilities to the MSX, except for its sound. I don't know if ColecoVision sound is better or worse than MSX, but I think it's similar, and the ColecoVision certainly has very respectable sound capabilities. Because it will quite happily do multi-channel music with no problems. But interestingly, despite being regarded as the arcade quality home system, it was pretty terrible at scrolling. Perhaps at least in part due to being based on the internal workings of the MSX. I bet he did a ColecoVision port of this, you know. I haven't looked in detail, but if you look at his sort of flowchart of things, I would guess that the ColecoVision is only a step away from the MSX in terms of porting. So if he didn't do one, I'd be very surprised. Oh, I missed the extra life. It's getting a little bit harder. It's still stage 4 before we've had any vague semblance of challenge though. And it's not really changing all that much. I think that's part of the problem. It's still the same scenery, the same music, the same enemies. It's just gradually getting a little bit more intense. So like I say, not a bad game by any means, but there are better out there. But the interesting thing about this game is not that it exists as a game. It's the fact that it's part of a much larger project. And that as part of that project, he, one, acknowledged the Atari 8-bit's existence, which is quite remarkable for a Japanese software developer. And two, he did a successful port to that platform. Because, like I say, while it would have been nice to see some of the Atari's unique capabilities being taken advantage of, this is perfectly competent, and I've certainly seen worse. Yeah, not sure what else to say about this, really. Well, like I say, I did do an article on all these games for Rice Digital a way back. So if I remember, I will put a link to that in the description. Or maybe I won't, actually, because YouTube seems to have decided that Rice Digital is a porn site. So I've been hit with community strikes more than once for linking to stuff on Rice Digital. We're not a porn site, I hasten to add. We do occasionally cover adult content. But yes, it's probably best to err on the side of caution with that one. So I'll just say, go and head over to ricedigital.co.uk and search for, I think the headline was Japanese C64 games or something similar, or just search for Inufuto and you'll find my article there. And that gives a rundown of all the available games as well. So besides this one, there's all sorts of other ones. There's a couple of other shoot-em-ups. There's a horizontally scrolling shoot-em-up that was quite good. There were some platform games. There's some sort of digging games. A lot of them are kind of homages to classic arcade games, particularly Namco stuff. So, like, this is obviously giving a respectful nod to Xevious, without being an out-and-out clone. We are definitely seeing a gradual escalation in the challenge, which is something. So more enemies are coming at once, they're shooting more bullets. Even those sort of gate enemies, I think they're slightly wider now as well. Yeah, I'm pretty sure those are wider than they were. But I guess it remains to be seen if there's an upper limit to how difficult it gets. Another extra life. Been a while since we've seen one of those. And another one. I guess that must be just be complete random when it drops those. So sometimes you just get lucky several times in immediate succession. Whoops. Well, like I say, this is going on for a while and not terribly interesting, but at least it's not, if you remember that Onslaught game we covered ages ago, I think that's also known as Klystron Raider. That was terrible because that had the problem that it went on forever and was boring and didn't really change. Whereas this is at least getting harder. And there's some variation in enemy attack patterns. So, and yes, there's only a few different types of enemy, but the way it combines them together is keeping things a bit more interesting than it would otherwise be. Particularly now more and more of them are starting to appear at once. Whoops. But yeah, in those early stages I didn't feel like I was in danger at all, but now it feels like there's a noteworthy amount more risk to what's going on. Much less downtime as well. So like even if you shoot stuff when it's right at the top of the screen, there's not really a wait for new stuff to appear anymore. It's almost every tick of the scrolling something new appears now. There's still the odd bit of downtime, but not as much as there was. Oops! We're actually losing lives faster than we're regaining them at last. Could we be on the way to the end of our Impetus run? Oh no! Oh dear. Oh dear me. Oh, we have a bullet stuck on the screen, ladies and gentlemen. That one's just not going anywhere. Does it kill me? Yes, it does. But I got rid of it, at least. Well, now we've got a bit more risk. I'm sure we'll be flooded with extra lives any minute. Yes, there's one. Oh no! Last life. So stage 6 is where Impetus gets real. Oops. I don't know, maybe I've just got better at this kind of game over the years. And some people might prefer that gradual difficulty incline, but yeah, for me certainly it's a little bit slow. And the bosses need to put up more of a fight. They're a bit weedy and pathetic as it is. You leave me be. I'll shoot you, I will. Having to concentrate a bit now. Will we make it to stage 8? I suspect there's no end to this game, given that there's not really an... Oh no! That's it! There's the end. I was going to say, I suspect that there's no end to this game, given that each level's pretty much exactly the same, but slightly harder. But anyway, yeah, not terrible. Not something I'd maybe suggest that you rush out and play for the sake of it being a cool game, but I would recommend that you have a look at Inufuto's whole project. On this whole porting thing, because it's a fascinating project, and he's ported these games to some really surprising systems in some cases. So like I said in the intro, rather than just confining himself to systems that were popular in Japan, like the MSX and the PC-88, PC-98, FM whatever, and that sort of thing, Sharp X68000. Yeah, he's deliberately incorporated a bunch of Western systems as well, like the Commodore 64, the Commodore 16, the Atari, the Amstrad, and that kind of thing. So it's a really interesting project to take a look at. So I suggest you do so. If I can remember what his website is, I'll put a link to that down in the description. As I say, I won't link to Bryce Digital because dear old YouTube doesn't seem to like us very much. But yeah, give it a look and try some of the different versions of the same game as well, because you might be surprised at the capabilities of those different systems and how one game can look quite different on different platforms and so on. Always something I find quite interesting about retro gaming these days. Anyway, we'll leave that there for today. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.